we go. Hey, let's see where we're at. Oh, okay. 3. So Ian, what do you think in 2 weeks? Do you think Duplessis will be able to beat Kamsat? Yeah, I think so too. I think if he gets out of the first round, Kamsat seems to look way more human. So it's gonna be interesting, for sure. So in case anyone wondering what the hell I'm doing, if I'm gone mad, I'm going through the 24 finger combinations using all hammer-ons. That's why I do this, so I don't have to worry about the muting. Almost done. I know this is not very pleasant to listen to. Arpan, are you're a member of the practice room, right? Cause and hey Jelly, because if you are, you have a alternate picking deep dive there for free, and that's the best exercise you can do if you haven't done them before. And if you're not a member of practice room, you need to sign up because that's also free. Yeah, about the lacking star fights in the UFC, absolutely. Doesn't help when they let John Jones just fuck around for a year. And then like, oh, actually guys, I'm gonna retire. Yeah, could have said that maybe 6 to 8 months before that. Yeah, exactly. But that's just because you wanted to be on the White House card, which I hope they don't do the White House card. It just becomes this weird idiocracy type of vibe to that. You know, just keep it a sport separate from politics. Fuck's sake. Really is crazy. Milo, John, I know you already saw the doors, but you can shoot a video for Ibanez guitar if they accept, which I don't see why they wouldn't. With nice people playing for a guitar video. How do you mean that you? If Ibanez approached me and wanted me to make a video? Yeah, sure. I also, I don't think Ola would have any big issues with that. He's very cool about everything. He doesn't mind me playing my Fender, my PRS or whatever. So Arpan, you're not making me angry, but if you go into the classroom of the practice room community and you look for alternate picking deep dive, you have the lessons there. So it's just easier than me sitting here and trying to give you a lesson like this. So that's why I made it, right? So just check that out instead. Welcome. Just in general, to get your synchronization going, it's less about a specific exercise, it's more about how you practice. You need to practice accurately and using transition time. Transition time means that you go quickly from note to note. You don't go like this. Instead, you want to only slow down the notes, but not the movement between the notes. Yeah, Sean would do a lot of weird things actually. He would do some economy picking in certain spots. He would, not pick everything in certain places. And he would also, he had some strange ideas. He said that no one can develop using 3 and 4 together like this. That only a special person can develop that, he said in an interview, like Paul Gilbert. It's like, yeah, but that's not true. I've done it, and I'm not a special person, and I know a shit ton of guitar players that have developed, the use of 3 and 4 together. It's just a matter of practice. So even though Sean was a genius and a really great player, I wouldn't take everything he says as gospel. So, yeah. And also, I believe he picked with the pick the other direction, but that doesn't really matter. He was also a very special human being in a way, because he heard a story about him going to the library with a wheelbarrow because he couldn't get enough books overnight, otherwise he would get bored. He read so quickly. So yeah, but I think Paul Gilbert's picking technique sounds better. I think Vinnie Moore sounds better. I think Yngwie sounds better. There's certain things that Sean had played that I really like the sound of, but I'm not that on board with, that everything he did was amazing. I mean, it's subjective, so you can think that, and you can also think I'm full of shit, but I prefer the picking sound of Vinnie Moore, for example, when he was at his best. That's, for me, the best picking sound, so. See, that's a good use of your time. Disc Golf World Championships, holy shit. Yeah, I think it was the Powers of 10 album is amazing. But not because he plays fast in certain spots, it's because it's so musical and great. So I think it's almost a bit unfair that he got put into this sort of shredding box only. He was way more than that. I saw him live when he played with, was it Trilo Gertu? And was an Indian tabla player, and it was Jonas Hellborg on bass. And he played amazingly well, so. Yeah, you can do anything on the acoustic as well. That's really good for you, actually. Yeah, but just make sure that you do it, Arpan, because there's a lot of things you can read that's like, oh, that seems to make sense, and then you never get to it. I'm not talking about you specifically here, but I'm talking about myself as well. Like, oh, that seems like a great idea. And then for whatever reason, you never actually do it, so. So I think it's important to really make sure you know, if you learn a new practice technique, really try it. No, just relax. But also, you don't. If you look at Steve Morse, for example, he used a lot of his arm, and Vinnie Moore at the height of his picking power used his arm a lot. I'm not recommending that you have to use your arm, but don't get stuck into thinking there's only one way to pick the instrument, because there might be that what works best for your body is going to be something different. So if you're super adamant about doing it one specific way, you might take way longer to develop your technique. So for me, I don't care what it looks like. I just want to be relaxed, accurate, and also have the tone that I like. That's all I care about. Because everyone has a different thing going, right? So I remember seeing Michelangelo Badio talk about, like, you know, you can pick any way you like, but what doesn't work is moving your thumb. Okay, cool. You might believe that, but then you see Cesario Filio, you know, 20 years later, do exactly the opposite and sounds great. So I think I'm very careful about saying that, oh, you can't do that, because invariably it's going to be some person that does that and sounds awesome. I mean, take Marty Friedman, for example. If I was his teacher, I'd be like, wow, what are you doing, man? You know, what's happening with your wrist? But he sounds great doing it. So it's kind of like, if it works for you, don't change it. Sergius, if you're that patient for doing those exercises, you must be very patient. Yeah. Well, you know, people do their best, and they're, you know, not assholes. I'm patient. I have a very low patience though when people are rude or whatever. But also, I'm not that patient really, because I want to get results, and for me, I found that slowing down gets me the results faster. So. Well, Arpen, what's my approach to learning songs faster? That depends on if it's strictly about learning the song and you know, your technique or my technique is up for it, then it's mainly a matter of listening to the song so you know the song well. That will speed up everything. And also, even before learning it, listening through and see, like, all right, so the song is 5 minutes long, but it's actually only 2.5 minutes of of music that's different, because you have repeated verses and choruses and whatever. So that's a good thing to know as well, so you don't sit there and be like, oh, it's going to take forever. So that's really important, I find. But if it's something that's like, oh, I want to play Erotomania by Dream Theater, but I can hardly get through Highway to Hell with AC/DC, well, then it's going to take you forever to learn, because your technique is not up for it. And in that case, I think you're better off working on your technique so you can get closer to that level and then start looking at that song. But actually, you can still, you should still learn the song, but don't expect to play it up to tempo. But you can still learn it, and that's a good idea actually, because then you can see like, all right, I know it's that thing, but I can't play it at speed. But I know what it is, and then you can do exercises for, you know, months, maybe years, and then eventually you're gonna be able to play that. Yeah, you need to be, I mean, patient to a certain degree, right? Or at least know that it's not going to happen overnight. That's the thing though, Marlo, you kind of need to do it, not kind of, you need to do it correctly to see the results. But correctly just means that you try to move as quickly as you can, and you make sure that you don't get any flams when you do it, right? Because that defeats the whole purpose when you do that stuff. But I see a lot of people practice slow in a way that won't help that much, because they slow everything down, right? So they would go, and that doesn't sound very good when you play it slow like that either. So you get more tone out of the string when you move quickly through it with the pick. Because it's slower, because you know you don't go through like this. You sort of glide off it, right? But if you do that really quickly, you set the string in motion, and the less time you spend on with the pick on the string, the clearer the tone gets. That's at least my experience. I have to get the motivation to do so. Planning an order, being disciplined, this is my huge flaw. I want things right now and can't wait, but John's videos are helpful after work. I know. Yeah, but that's the thing. It doesn't matter if you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. If you want to get better at, guitar, you need to do the practice yourself. It's like going to a personal trainer and being like, hey, do some push-ups for me. It doesn't work that way. So. I actually saw a good exercise that Guthrie Govan showed in one of his books. So basically you pivot from one finger to another. So a normal way would be to take 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2. So you pivot from the index finger the whole time. Good to work on, but then you can pivot from the second finger. So then you go 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 3, and it doesn't sound the same, obviously, but also it can, even though we're still pivoting, meaning we're going back to the second finger the whole time. So 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 3. It kind of feels different in a way, but it's a really good one to work on. So. Then we can do the same thing with the third finger. 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2. And finally, 4. Well, the way that I think about guitars, I remember having a shitty guitar when I started. And it was some other guitar I wasn't happy with as well later on. But I felt like, well, it doesn't matter. The guitar will change, but I can still practice and I can get better. So I don't need to have the perfect instrument right now. So don't give yourself that out to be like, well, if I could only have this guitar, I would practice more. I mean, Paul Gilbert started on an acoustic guitar. I think Slash did as well, and I think both Paul and Slash went through the strings. They started breaking one after another. So obviously that's not ideal, but I wouldn't, put too much stock into the current guitar you have. You do what you can. So. more questions. I have to cut it short today because I started too late because we had a really long dog walk. You too, Ian. Yeah, I like this one, but mainly it's changing strings is basically peak boredom for me. So I go to the guitar that has the freshest strings, which is probably not this one at this point actually. So it's time to do the dreaded string change. It's not that bad, but it's just, you know, boring. Well, I don't agree. Also, if I look at, there's so many classical musicians that still advise to practice scales for an hour a day or so. And the reason for that is that when you're learning a new piece of music, you might have to play a scale, you know, that you practiced a lot before, but then you have a certain turnaround in it that's new for that particular solo or piece of music you're learning. And if you can play the scale, then you only need to work on the special transition in that part of the song. So I don't think you can be too good at the fundamentals, meaning being able to play the scales and different sequences and, you know, everything that you might be needing for whatever style you're into. And like I said, I rather look at professional virtuoso musicians than some, you know, guitar player in some band who's like, yeah, man, I just learn songs because it's boring to do exercises. Because chances are that dude won't be peak elite musician anyway. But, you know, but saying that, you also need to, if you want to learn music, you need to work on music, obviously. But I don't think it's as easy to say, like, never work on exercises, because I think any approach like that is too extreme in either way. And at the end of the day, people can do whatever they want, so. And I would actually say that if you can play any song that you want to play, meaning you have no technical issues, it's just a matter of learning the notes, then maybe you're good for your level. You don't need to work on technique anymore, right? But chances are that there's songs that you can't play because your technique isn't up to it. So you working on other repertoire won't really help that much. It will after a while, but you can streamline that process a lot by actually finding that, oh shit, when I try to do outside picking, I have a really hard time doing that. Instead of trying to find examples in songs you're working on that have that problem, you can come up with a gazillion outside picking exercises and deal with that problem in a few months instead of having to, hope that it gets better. So I think I think you need both. And also I'm a big believer in learn whatever song or lick you want and don't even think about the end tempo. So. Yeah, but Culver High, he was a teacher at GIT when I went there, and he's definitely practiced scales as well. So it's a bit too simplistic. And also, that's great for him, but chances are he's practiced scales way more than, someone who's reading that has done. So it might not be the same thing for them, right? But, if you can't be bothered to work on your technique, that's up to you. But I wouldn't say that one way is necessarily better than the other. I know, for example, that Brett Garsed, who's one of my absolute biggest favorites, his way of practicing technique would just be to improvise over a jam track and try to keep a line going. So improvise. But that's still working on your technique, I believe, because it's not just learning a solo or improvising. It's improvisation with limitations on it, so you can work on specific things. And I love Culver Highan's playing, by the way. So I'm not shitting on him, but I'm just saying that sometimes it can be misleading to look at some guy or girl who's been playing for 30, 40 years are pretty awesome, and then I never do this anymore. It's like, but that's great, but if you're a beginner and you can't change between two chords, just because Culver Highan doesn't do that in his practice doesn't mean that you shouldn't. So it all depends on what your particular weaknesses are. And if you have a technical weakness, you will get there much faster if you can pinpoint that and do exercises to get rid of that weakness. That's why you do exercises, in my opinion. It's not for just for the sake of doing exercises. But, there's a reason why so many classical virtuosos still practice scales. So Itzhak Perlman, if you know what that is, he had, that masterclass thing where they have Hans Zimmer and you have all kinds of different screenwriters. So you have all kinds of masterclasses about someone's specific topic. And Itzhak Perlman had one for violin playing, and he said work on his suggested practice schedule was like scales and arpeggios 1 hour, etudes 1 hour, repertoire 1 hour. So it's you can argue that etudes is a form of scale practice or technique practice. So in this case, he advised two-thirds of the practice to be in the technical nature. So, but again, it's gonna be different depending on who you are, what you like to do, and all that stuff. But I know I'm rambling on here, but this is a thing that comes up sometimes where people are like, I would never practice something that I can't use in improvisation. But that's also a bit silly because Scott Henderson, who's one of the best improvisers ever in my opinion, he said he would never practice this stuff. And the reason for that was that if he's going to improvise, then he would be likely to, since it's in a scale and I'm just doing thirds here, A Dorian. Because he was scared that he would start improvising, which is not, very musical. So he would, learn lines and stuff like that instead. But if I practice a technique exercise, just like I did here in the beginning, when I went through that's just to get the synchronization going and going through all the combinations, all that stuff. But there's no risk in me improvising and being slipping into the... That's just about me being able to pick pick notes that I want to pick and be able to hit them without having to practice everything individually first. So yeah, anyway, long answer that covered more than your actual question. Cool. All right. On that note, I'm gonna go do something else now and see you tomorrow.